things theology, all things theology. We chop it up properly, without an apology. Gotta give that theology to God, hallowed be, cause this is how we do it at All Things Theology.
Yo, grace and peace. Welcome back to another episode of All Things Theology, where this is your host, K-Dub. Today, I want to talk about what's been going on with Gateway Church. Since we last talked about the topic, there's been a slew of resignations and firings that has happened from other elder candidates. We want to talk about that. Little recap. Robert Morris was discovered to have an inappropriate relationship in his early 20s with a 12-year-old. We'll talk about that more. Due to this was discovered. A lot of people have reactions, some interesting, I would say, unbiblical reactions to this. But since we last covered it, again, multiple resignations, multiple firings we want to talk about here. I want to read an article that dropped not too long ago, and let's talk about it together. As you can see on the screen, it says Kimtal Glasgow fired for moral issues elders won't disclose. Now, if you remember anything about the week after Robert Morris was, all this kind of came out, Kimtal was the first person who preached a sermon right after all this news came out. And very interesting sermon nevertheless, but this is who this is. So let's keep going and let's read together. It says, Kimtal Glasgow, Gateway Church's executive pastor who provided leadership and oversight to all of the mega church's campuses and gathering locations, has been fired due to a moral issue, the South Lake, Texas-based church announced on Wednesday. Now, they won't disclose what actually happened, and they actually initially made a YouTube video. I believe it's unlisted now. We'll click on it and I'll just play it if I can play it.
I have an important family update for you. Gateway has over 560 employees, and we won't make it a practice to update you on all of our staff changes, but we did feel like it was important to update you on this staff change. As of Monday this week, Kimtal Glasgow is no longer employed at Gateway. We were informed last week of a moral issue which we believe as elders disqualifies him from serving in the role that he had at Gateway. We love his family. We love his wife and his kids, and we want to come alongside them during this difficult time and help them find restoration and healing that they need as a family. And we would ask that you as a church would pray for them as well. What this does do is it makes a way for us now to promote Adana Wilson into overseeing the campus pastors. So Adana, effective yesterday, stepped into that role. We're excited for Dana. Adana is going to be a perfect person to take on this responsibility, and she's going to do terrific. I want to ask you to continue to pray for our family. Pray for Kimtal and his family. Pray for Adana and her family as she steps into this role as well with new responsibilities. We love you, and we do thank you for continuing to pray for us during this time.
Now, very interesting observations that I noticed. Why was Kimtal fired, but Robert Morris allowed to resign? It seems from what they're going to say in this article that it has no correlation to Robert Morris's sin, which is seemingly they're trying to say. That's, I'm trying to be fair. What it sounds like they're saying is it wasn't involving a child, but possibly another woman, if I'm reading this kind of in the best light possible. So very interesting that the greater crime, sin, I would even say, is allowed to resign, but the lesser is allowed to get fired. That doesn't make any sense. Very interesting that a woman pastor also is being placed. There's a whole litany of issues, right? So yeah, as they said, as of Monday this week, Kimtal Glasgow is no longer employed at Gateway. We were informed last week of a moral issue which we believe as elders disqualifies him from serving in the role that he had at Gateway. Very interesting when the elders found out about Robert Morris's moral issue, he was still allowed to be the pastor, right? He just was told to sit down for a couple of years, which actually that didn't even happen. So I just see how they handle these issues so different, right? Very interesting. Let's keep on with the article. All right. They gave his condolences to his family. I mean, what about the person that this was done with? Again, lots of issues. Adana Wilson, the campus pastor of Gateway Church Frisco, will take over Glasgow's role, Wilbanks said. Since when we asked to clarify Glasgow's moral issue, Lawrence Swicegood, Gateway Church's executive director, was quick to point out that it has nothing to do with the departure of Robert Morris, nor related to those circumstances. See, this is why I actually don't believe it was involving some kind of child. Again, I'm trying to read this in the best light, but possibly just another woman of age. That's kind of how I read this. What do you guys think? You come to the same conclusions? Again, I'm not saying it's okay, and I think they actually made the right decision to put him down. But how much more should have Robert Morris been put down? By put down, I mean step down, right? Not obviously. I think you guys get what I mean. Continuing on, it says, at Gateway, it is our deepest desire for every staff member to lead a life of integrity, both in their personal and professional lives. It recently came to light that Kimtal Glasgow had a moral failure, so we've asked him to step down as a pastor at Gateway and devote time to his marriage and family. Again, I just see differences in how they handle Robert Morris versus how they handle Kimtal. Yeah, we went over some of that in this video. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, they talk about Morris here from the Christian Post. It says, Morris, who is the founder of Gateway Church, resigned as the church senior pastor on June 18th after 54-year-old Cindy Clemshire reported that the megachurch pastor began SA her on December 25th, 1982, when she was just 12 years old, and continued with the abuse for 4.5 years after that. Since Morris' resignation, notice the resignation, right? Not firing. Gateway Church has undertaken an independent investigation to the allegations made against him, and several key leaders of the church have followed him out the door. Now, as far as I understand, this independent investigation has not been completed. It has not been released. So I'm not sure where they are on this investigation, but let's keep reading. But notice several key leaders have left the church several key leaders have left the church. But notice some of the reasonings why. Because not all are for like, hey, I'm just trying to do a new start. Some of them have been moral failings as well. These include founding elder Steve Dolan, who is alleged to have been fired due to financial abuse and bullying. Morris' son, James Morris, who had taken the reins of the megachurch after his father's resignation, also stepped down last month after just spending just weeks in the role. So after his father's exposing, he stepped into the role. Then just weeks down the role, he stepped down himself. Now, was this, hey, I'm having regrets? Was this, people putting pressure on him? We don't know. Says both James Morris and his wife Bridget left the church, so they are no longer at the church as well. It says Gateway elders said that they sought the advice of many well-respected pastors and ministry leaders about the decision to cut ties with the Morrises, while noting they are confident they will serve as senior leaders of a church in the future. I think to be fair, they're speaking about Robert Morris' son and his wife, James and Bridget. It says, we as elders affirm and believe that God has placed a desire in both pastors, James and Bridget's heart, to serve as senior pastor of a church at some point in the future. We love Pastor James and Bridget and their children. We deeply care about them and sincerely thank them for investing their lives here at Gateway Church. They have faithfully and honorably served our congregation and this community throughout all the years, and they have been part of Gateway Church. And that is the end of the article. Now, there are multiple other sources that I have read, just talking about other elders connected to Gateway that have either stepped down or they've been investigated. And there's some interesting news coming out about them. I'll reserve that for now. But I think there's some practical application we want to talk about here. And that is what 1 Timothy 5:22, I believe, says, where you don't want to lay hands on the elders too soon. What that means is we don't want to call someone to the elder role before they're actually qualified, before we've actually watched their life and their doctrine to make sure, okay, this person would be a good elder. I think the Bible is very clear on that issue. Also, sometimes there are red flags that lead people to these things. There's red flags you see in an elder candidate to where you're like, hey, maybe we need to look more into that. Sometimes, you're just so enamored by the celebrity pastor. Oftentimes those things get overlooked. But I want to read just a passage here that talks about the candidates that are elder and see if Robert Morris fits these. I think very early on, Robert Morris was unqualified. They ignore this, and now there's a slew of mess that's come out of this, right? 1 Timothy chapter 3, it says, the saying is trustworthy. If anyone aspires to the office of overseer, he desires a noble task. Notice it's he. Therefore, an overseer must be above reproach, the husband of one wife. So above reproach from the offset was, right, just didn't have the above reproachness, right? Sober-minded, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, not a drunkard, not violent, but gentle, not quarrelsome, not a lover of money. He must manage his own household well, with all dignity, keeping his children submissive. For if someone does not know how to manage his own household, how will he care for God's church? He must not be a recent convert. Now, this is actually one of the violations of Robert Morris. He was thrown into the pastoral, it seems, because he was a good speaker early on. And unfortunately, sometimes today, if you can speak well, they just throw you in the pastoral office, right? It says he must not be a recent convert, or he may become puffed up with conceit and fall into the condemnation of the devil. Moreover, he must be well thought of by outsiders, so that he may not fall into disgrace, into the snare of the devil. So much application we can make about this situation at a whole. It's unfortunate what's happening at Gateway, and I think we're going to see. I remember from the very beginning saying, guys, I believe this story will get worse before it gets better. Unfortunately, we've seen these stories like this too much, and it's time for the church to take serious the doctrine of holiness. Otherwise, we create systems and theologies to perpetuate this stuff rather than to condemn it and rebuke it. Hope you guys enjoy this video. Till the next time, grace and peace. Oh, grace and peace. Thank you for watching another episode of All Things Theology. If you enjoyed what you heard today, go on and give me a like. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell. I promise to give you weekly lives, videos, interactions, exposing false teachers, sharing with you, the viewer, my theological beliefs, things about the culture, and the Bible. So if you're here for that, come on and join us. Also, if you would like to support this channel financially, you can do so by becoming a Patreon member or a YouTube member. Links are in the description below. You can see content before it drops. You can also have Q&A sessions with also other Patreon members, YouTube members as well. So if you would like that, hit the description link in below.